Hi, I'm Jaclyn.
And I'm Courtney, and this is Caffeinated Crimes.
Welcome back. So, in last week's episode, we talked about how we were getting a late start, and Courtney was very excited because it was my fault. And this week, we're also getting a late start, but it's about 12 hours late today, and now it's Courtney's fault.
So, we've had, we're usually caffeinated crimes. We're sometimes a little alcoholic crimes, and half of us are hungover crimes right now. So, I went and saw some friends that I haven't seen in a while, and we more so me, started taking shots. And
just Courtney by herself.
I always had at least one person do it with me, so.
See, that's all you need.
But I would take a shot and I would chase it with my beer. So it wasn't even like I was mixing anything up. I was just going crazy. So I was pretty hungover this morning, and I did not get out of bed until like 1:30.
So we normally record like 9:30, 10 o'clock on Sunday mornings, but Courtney was very courteous to send me a video of herself approximately 2, 3 a.m. I'm not sure. I got it when I woke up this morning, letting me know that she was not going to be able to record today. So I appreciated that.
And I still somehow woke up at 8:20.
Yeah.
I was
like, is that you, Courtney? Is it really you? So she sent me a selfie of her hungover self to confirm that it was indeed her.
Yeah, it was a very, very rough morning. Yeah, I'll leave it at that. It was very rough. So, but I'm good now. I'm good. I have food in me. I have water. I'm good.
You got to use Instacart for the first time?
I did, because I woke up and I couldn't keep water down, and I was like, how do I stop puking from drinking into Google? And one thing they suggested was like bland foods, and I've been trying crackers and that was not working. And then I saw it say applesauce, and I was like, oh, I want some applesauce. And we had some in our fridge, and I opened it up and there's just like mold all in it, and I was like, oh never mind. So yeah, I Instacarted, and I got applesauce, chicken noodle soup, and body armor, and Kevin some shampoo. So thank you, Jason from Instacart, for bringing me my hungover kit. Thank you.
And for 15% off, no, I wish. If you guys want to sponsor us, I mean.
For real, I'll use you if you sponsor us.
And Courtney was texting me about this, and I guess I read the text message too quick, and I saw chicken noodle applesauce, and I'm like, okay, I understand you're hungover, and sometimes, like, different foods sound good, but what the hell is chicken noodle applesauce? And then I was like, oh, there are a couple more words in there that I just skimmed over. So.
Yeah, it's just flavored. Applesauce that's flavored with chicken noodle.
Chicken noodle soup. That's kind of what gross. Baby food is, pretty much, so.
Yeah. I mean, I basically, like, took a bite of, like, soup and then took a bite of applesauce, so it's basically what I was eating.
That sounds like a lovely meal. Yep.
Yeah. And then I had ramen for dinner, because that's the ultimate comfort food.
That is, yep.
Things are going good, guys.
That's what we're doing today, and why we are now recording at 9 p.m. on a Sunday, so.
Yeah, that's what it is.
Yep, but we're here, we're doing it, we're still bringing you guys that quality content. Yesterday, we recorded our monthly Q&A session for our Patreon people, so if you guys are not on Patreon yet, be sure and head over there so you can get some extra bonus content like that. And with that, I think we're going to get started with this week's horrific case, which is insane, absolutely insane.
Yeah, it's crazy. You guys are going to enjoy it.
Yes, so this one came up, I don't know if you want to tell the story of how it came up since...
Okay, yeah, so this...
I wasn't there.
So, this crime is a local, to both of us, but to me currently, crime, because it's from Knoxville. I did remember hearing about it some, but my parents really remembered it because, my mom works close to where our victim was found, and they just kind of knew about it. And so my dad was talking about how he listens to the podcast, and he was like, have you done Christa Pike yet? Do you remember her? It's crazy. And so I was like, ooh, that's a good one to do. And I texted Jaclyn and was like, we're doing this one. So here it is.
Yeah, and I was like, I don't know this one. I've never heard of this one. So I texted my dad, who also listens to the podcast, and asked him if he remembered it because it was like in the 90s in Knoxville, and he did remember it. So,
For a very shocking detail that will sit with you after this.
yes, it doesn't really go away. So we will now share all of the lovely details with you guys. So a lot of our information came from the court documents. We watched an episode called Women on Death Row, spoiler alert, a book called She-Devil, The True Story of Christa Pike by Natalie Marshall, also a University of Richmond article, and a constitutional law report article as well. On January 12th, 1995, 4 students by the names of Christa Pike, Tadaryl Shipp, Shadolla Peterson, and Colleen Slemmer were seen walking away from their dorms at the Job Corps Center in Knoxville, Tennessee. 2 hours later, only 3 of the students returned. So, we said this is primarily going to be about a woman named Christa Pike. So, Christa Gale Pike was born on March 10th, 1976 in Durham, North Carolina. She was essentially raised by her grandmother because both of her parents were rarely home, and her mom was an alcoholic and a drug addict. And once when Christa was a toddler, her mom was at the bar and received a call from the grandmother that Christa was having severe seizures that ended up resulting in hospitalization, and her mom chose to stay at the bar instead of going to be with her child, which just kind of seems to be a general theme of Christa's parenting in her life.
Yeah.
Christa's mom did say that she was sweet and loving one day and in trouble the next, but her aunt said that Christa was a pathological liar and she wouldn't even let her kids associate with her because she lived in a filthy house with 0 rules. And it was also said that Christa's mom drank regularly while she was pregnant with her, and that some of her developmental concerns may be due to being allowed as a child to play at the slaughterhouse her grandfather worked at, as well as being subjected to porn and horror movies on the TV at home.
I want to know what manager at this slaughterhouse that sees a kid playing and is like, that's cool.
Yeah, like you can hang out here. No big deal. Yeah, it's fine. Her mom sent her away once because there was a conflict between Christa and her new husband, and she's like, okay, well, I guess my daughter's got to go because I picked my husband. And there is speculation that Christa was sexually abused by both her grandmothers and her mother's boyfriends. She attempted suicide for the first time when she was 12 after the death of the grandmother that had raised her up until this point. So after that, she would bounce around between different family members' homes. Her mom reports that she was in and out of trouble during her teenage years, and she would stay with her father occasionally, but there was a lot of conflict there, and he did have a new family, and the last time he kicked her out, he said it was because he suspected her of sexually abusing his 2-year-old daughter. So he told her that she was no longer allowed to be at his house, and he actually signed away his parental rights, allowing her to be adopted, but she was 17 at the time, and she turned 18 before an adoption could be completed, which I couldn't really find if there was someone who was trying to adopt her. I didn't really find any more information about that, just that he had signed the rights over, but she turned 18 before anything could go through, but I don't know if there was someone who was going to adopt her.
And that's just a real big, fuck you from your dad, that you're that close to being 18 and he's like, I'm going to sign away all rights to you. And,
yeah.
It kind of is just giving me a little bit of, Eileen Wuornos vibes, where it's just, constantly being, rejected. Nobody really, accepts her. And that's why she kind of ended up acting the way she did. But it's, it is so important when kids are young to have, safe and secure relationships with people.
Yes.
That'll be told over and over again.
Yes. And I mean, obviously, if she is sexually abusing your 2-year-old child, that's a huge thing. But, that's also your child still. So, at 17 years old, would you not try to get help for that child versus, I just want nothing to do with you? I don't know. I've never been in a situation. I hope I never am in a situation where I would have to make those decisions, but it just seems a little odd to me that no one would try to get her help through all of this. But after she turned 18, her mom encouraged her to go to the Job Corps program that was located within the University of Tennessee. While at Job Corps, she met her boyfriend, Tadaryl Shipp. Tadaryl was supposedly a Satanist, and this fascinated Christa. She said that he protected her, and he was the first man who actually wanted to protect her, who saw her as, quote, a treasure instead of something to use and throw away. And those were in Christa's words. Now, we want to address Satanism as a religion before we go any further into this story. So, Satanism is not inherently evil, and there are people who are Satanists who have nothing to do with torture, abuse, murder, or any of the crimes that are commonly attributed to Satanists in the media. We obviously don't claim to be Satanist experts. So we wanted to provide an overview of Satanism, but there's a lot of conflicting information online, and we just don't want to get anything wrong. So basically, we just want to emphasize that Satanism was not the reason behind this crime, and that not all people who are a part of a satanic religion are evil. So that's all we want to say about that.
Yeah, and the podcast Stuff You Should Know has a really good episode on Satanism.
Yes.
And kind of, debunks a lot of myths. They're not these people who just go around, killing children and goats and just hailing Satan all the time. It's not really what it is. So, just because we're saying that Christa and her boyfriend were a part of that does not mean what they did is something that Satanists would approve of.
Yes. So I was not familiar with what Job Corps is. So the program that existed within the University of Tennessee where this crime takes place is no longer there. So we didn't really grow up with it being around as far as something that we knew what it was. So I had to look it up. So in case you guys are not aware of what it is, I just wanted to give you guys a brief little snippet about what this program is so you can kind of understand their living situation at this time. So, according to the Job Corps website, Job Corps is the largest nationwide residential career training program in the country and has been operating for more than 50 years. The program helps eligible young people ages 16 through 24 complete their high school education, train them for meaningful careers, and assist them with obtaining employment. At Job Corps, students have access to room and board while they learn skills in specific training areas for up to 3 years. In addition to helping students complete their education, obtain career technical skills, and gain employment, Job Corps also provides transitional support services such as help finding employment, housing, childcare, and transportation. So at the time that this crime occurred, you have, in addition to the University of Tennessee, which is obviously a bunch of young people in one area, you also have this Job Corps program also with young people all housed in one area. A lot of them are coming from troubled backgrounds, so they do need some extra assistance with completing their high school education and gaining employment skills. So that's kind of the climate of the area at this time.
Yeah, and from what I remember, the office was basically on UT campus, wasn't it?
Yes.
Basically there. So a lot of people there. A lot of things going on.
Yes. So Colleen Slemmer was another classmate of Christa, Tadaryl, and Shadolla's. So Christa believed that Colleen was after her boyfriend and had been, quote, running her mouth everywhere. So Christa would go into Colleen's room while she was sleeping, and Colleen would wake up to her just standing over her. So Colleen told her mom that she was afraid of Christa and she wanted to come home, but her mom reminded her that she had signed a contract with Job Corps so that she had to stay there. And on January 11th, Christa had told a friend, Kim Ilio, we're not sure if we're pronouncing that correctly, sorry, that she planned to kill Colleen because she had just felt mean that day, which isn't really a reason.
Nope.
And Kim watched the 4 individuals leave the dorms around 8 p.m. the following day, January 12th, and all 4 of them did sign out on the dorm's sign-out sheet as well. So Christa, Tadaryl, and Shadolla told Colleen that they had a bag of marijuana hidden in Tyson Park and they wanted to share it with her as a kind of peace offering. And Christa later said that she only intended to fight Colleen, not murder her, but she did bring a box cutter and a meat cleaver with her that she stole from the Job Corps Center. So they arrived at the steam plant on the University of Tennessee's agricultural campus, and Christa and Colleen got into a verbal argument. Christa then began hitting Colleen on the head and slamming her head into her knee. Colleen threatened to tell the Job Corps program so that Christa would be kicked out, but Christa just continued to kick her in the face and the side. And Colleen was lying on the ground crying and got up to attempt to run away, but Tadaryl caught her and pushed her back down. Christa and Tadaryl then drug Colleen to another area, and Tadaryl held her down while Christa cut across her stomach with the box cutter. And Christa claims that Tadaryl was the one who then carved a pentagram into Colleen's stomach. And Christa later claimed that voices told her she had to do something to prevent Colleen from going to the police and telling them what happened. So Colleen got up and attempted to run away again, and Christa slashed down her back with the box cutter, and Colleen was pleading for her life at this point, and she told Christa if she would just let her go, that she would walk home to Florida right then and just never see her again. Christa told her to shut up because, quote, it was harder to hurt someone when they're talking to you. Yet she repeatedly kicked Colleen in the face every time that she spoke. Ugh. And at one point, they forced her to remove her bra and her shirt to try to prevent her from running away, which I don't know if it was just oh, well, if you're naked, you're not going to run away and get help. But I'm if someone's murdering me, I don't care if I'm naked, I'm still going to run away. I don't understand
I'll be butt naked and I'm still going to be somebody help me, please.
Exactly. You're fighting for your life. I don't think that's something that's going to stop her. So Colleen asked what Christa was going to do to her, and Christa thought she heard a noise, so she checked the surrounding area, but after finding it cleared, she did come back to Colleen, and she then slashed Colleen's neck several times. Christa and Tadaryl both attacked Colleen with the meat cleaver as well, and Colleen managed to stand up again, and Christa threw a rock that hit her in the head. And Christa and Tadaryl then found broken chunks of asphalt on the ground and repeatedly beat Colleen on the head with them. Christa asked Colleen at one point if she knew who was doing this to her, as Colleen is just fading away. And then Christa said that she wanted to see Colleen's brains and slammed the asphalt onto her head until her skull cracked. And when Colleen could only groan in response, Christa and Tadaryl each grabbed one of Colleen's feet and dragged her closer to some trees and left her body on a pile of dirt and garbage. They placed her clothing in some nearby bushes, and then Christa removed a piece of Colleen's skull and put it in her pocket.
Now, I've never really gotten into a fight. I've never been that mad at someone that I go and fight them, but
no.
If you're saying your only intention is to fight them, you had so many opportunities to walk away.
Yeah.
Just walk away. So many times you could have just been okay, you're good, goodbye. Mm-hmm. That's why I just, to me, I just cannot believe that she was I was just going to fight her. No, you weren't.
No.
You weren't.
This was they would later say, between 30 minutes to 1 hour attack. This is a long, brutal, horrific murder. And you had every chance to stop it.
Yeah.
We'll get into that. But Christa did later say, quote, I knew exactly what I was doing. Everything I did that night, I think I was taking things out on her that had happened to me years ago. What? What, bitch? I'm sorry.
This girl has not done anything to you. You just think that she likes your boyfriend.
Yeah. So, Christa, Tadaryl, and Shadolla, who witnessed this whole thing and did nothing about it. So she wasn't actively involved in the murder in terms of cutting her or hitting her, but she was physically present the entire time and did nothing. So the three then went to a gas station where they cleaned up and threw away Colleen's personal items, and they returned to the dorms and signed back in around 10:15. So Kim Ilio witnessed their return as well as corroborating with the sign-in sheet. So Christa then went to Kim's room and bragged that she had killed Colleen that night, and then whips out the piece of skull that she kept as the souvenir to show to Kim. And she specifically told Kim that she cut Colleen's throat 6 times, beat her, and hit her in the head with asphalt. She told Kim that Colleen begged them to stop, but they didn't. And Kim said that while Christa was telling her all of the details of this murder, that she's just dancing around her room going la 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 la, like, look at this fun thing that I did tonight.
I don't understand.
I have no words. The next morning, as they were headed to breakfast, Kim asked her where the skull was, and Christa said it was in her pocket and said, yes, I'm eating breakfast with it.
Ew.
Okay. And in class later that morning, Christa pointed out the brown spots on her shoes to another classmate, Stephanie Wilson, and said, quote, that ain't mud, that's blood, and showed her the piece of the skull as well. Christa then recounted all of the details of the murder to Stephanie, too. So Christa's just telling anyone who will listen about this murder that she just committed the night before and showing them the physical evidence on her person and the piece of the victim's skull that she's just showing to everyone at school.
Yeah, I don't get it. Like, how are these people not like... Because, like, I understand being like, okay, she's making this up with the whole, like, blood thing. But then you whip out a piece of a skull. Like, at that point, I'm like,
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I need to go to the bathroom
Yeah.
and immediately go to the police station. Like...
Yes. That's what you do in that situation. So, on January 13th, which happened to be a Friday, so some people later would say that this was a satanic ritual that was conducted the night before Friday the 13th when Satanists worship the devil. None of that's true. That's all completely bullshit. She murdered this girl because she thought she was after her boyfriend.
And my thing, too, is a lot of, like, what I read is that Christa was only a Satanist because her boyfriend was. So I'm like,
yes,
anything her boyfriend was, if he would have been, like, Christian or Jewish or anything else, she probably would have been that too. So it's nothing to do with that. She did not probably even actually know what it was about at all and was just doing whatever her boyfriend said.
Exactly. Honestly, he probably didn't even know what it was about either. So, but the day after Colleen's murder, an employee of the University of Tennessee Grounds Department discovered her barely concealed and badly beaten body. And she was beaten so badly that at first he thought it was an animal corpse because he didn't even recognize it as human. Courtney and I did accidentally stumble upon some of the autopsy photos. They are horrific. Just know if you Google this name that they're going to come up. So please be warned. It didn't take long for the police to suspect Christa since she had been seen leaving with Colleen and returned without her, both of which were corroborated by the dorm sign-out sheet. She had also bragged to anyone who would listen about murdering Colleen and showing them the piece of her skull. So while the individuals that she spoke to would speak with police after Christa's arrest, none of them went to the police before the body was discovered. Let me repeat that again. None of the people who were shown the skull from this murder went to the police.
What day was Christa arrested officially? Do you remember?
She was interviewed the next day. I don't know when she was officially arrested.
Yeah, because, like, these people had plenty. They had, like, a full day to be like, by the way, there's a girl running around, kind of crazy eyes, kind of weird.
Yeah.
Has a skull.
Has a skull in her pocket. Maybe do something. Okay.
If nothing else, she might be robbing graves. Like, there's something illegal here. So
Christa also spoke with someone who worked for Job Corps on the 13th and left her jacket in his office. So after this person learned that Christa was suspected in Colleen's murder, they turned the jacket over to the police department where they found the piece of skull inside. And Christa also showed up to Tyson Park after it had been marked as a crime scene while the police were investigating. So, like, she's just telling everyone that she did this. She's not attempting to hide it in any way. So, Christa was interviewed the next day on January 14th, and she waived her Miranda rights and gave a full and detailed confession, which is where all of the information earlier came from of exactly what happened. And she later said she thought if she told them everything and confessed to the entire thing, that her boyfriend and her friend wouldn't be arrested. And she did refuse to reveal their names during the interview, so she never told them who was with her that night. But she would later lead them to the bloodstained clothes in her dorm room, the trash can where she threw away Colleen's belongings, and the scene of the crime. She also reenacted the murder while she was at the scene with the police. So she's not hiding this in any way. She's like, this is what I did and where I did it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we might bring it up later, but her mom is just constantly like, what? Christa never did this. And it's like,
I couldn't believe
Christa said like 7 times that she did this.
Christa said she was going to do it before she did it, and then she did it, and then she immediately told people she did it. She told people the next day she did it. She left her jacket with the victim's skull in it hanging around town, and she told the police she did it. It's pretty clear that Christa fucking did it.
Yeah. Like, I don't know what more you want. So, Christa's trial did start on March 22nd, 1996. The defense really tried to focus on her tough childhood and her mental health. So, Dr. Eric Ingham testified that she suffered from severe borderline personality disorder, a depressive disorder, and signs of cannabis dependence. So, he did testify that she did not act with premeditation, but rather just lost control, which, are you sure? I'm not the doctor, but...
I mean, you brought a box cutter and a meat cleaver with you. So I'm not sure what wasn't premeditated.
Yeah. But he also found that she did have an IQ of 111, which is in the 77th percentile of the general population. So despite her difficult childhood and really lack of formal schooling beyond ninth grade, she was actually pretty smart.
Yeah.
Forensic psychiatrist and expert in satanic rituals, Dr. William Burnett, testified that this crime appeared more of a adolescent's dabbling in Satanism than an actual satanic crime. He also said he believed collective aggression played a role in the murder, in which a group of people engage in violent behavior after becoming emotionally aroused. It took the jury less than 3 hours to come up with a guilty verdict. And after this, they would decide on her sentence and whether she'd receive the death penalty. And at that point in Tennessee, they had not executed a woman since 1837. So it wasn't very common for a woman to get the death penalty.
Yes.
So during the penalty phase, it did take less than an hour and a half to sentence Christa Pike to death by electrocution. And then after this, Christa wrote a letter to her boyfriend stating, quote, "You see what I get for trying to be nice to that hoe. I went ahead and bashed her brains out so she'd die quickly instead of letting her bleed to death and suffer more. And they fucking fry me." And she signed it, Lil Devil.
Yes.
So.
This woman is like, I so graciously killed you quickly instead of slowly. And then these people want to sentence me to death. I don't understand. I was so nice and gracious.
Yeah. Like, what?
I just, like, what is going on in your skull?
Clearly nothing smart or good. That's why I was so interested on her IQ, because I was like hearing her talk and, like, what she says, like, she's just, I don't know. And if you are a Patreon and you saw our Q&A, I did give a little teaser that we were doing this episode, and I said I would love to punch her in the face, and now you get why. Now you see why.
Now you understand completely.
So, Tadaryl Shipp went to trial, and he was convicted of first-degree murder and conspiracy to commit murder. He did receive life plus 25 years, and he will be eligible for parole on June 15th, 2028. Seeing this crime, I'm really hoping he'll just stay in prison.
Yes, and he did not receive the death penalty because he was actually 17 at the time that this crime was committed. Because that was a question that I had. I was like, okay, after I read, like, this full statement, it seems like Christa was the instigator, but when you look at the terms of, like, who actually killed Colleen, it seemed like it was pretty equal between the two of them. So I was like, I don't understand why she got death and he didn't. But then when I was actually looking at his court documents, I saw that he was 17 at the time, so that is why he got life instead of the death sentence.
And Shadolla Peterson pleaded guilty to being an accessory after the fact and received 6 years probation. Some sources say she only received probation because she became an informant, but if you remember, Christa gave a full confession, had a piece of the victim's skull, told at least 2 people, probably more, what she did. So I'm not sure why you need an informant when you have everything you need. And I mean, Shadolla just watched and let this girl be murdered. So don't know how you live with yourself, Shadolla.
And, like, my thing, like, it would be horrible if you witnessed any murder and did nothing, but this isn't like, oh, we went out there and my friends shot her and she died and then we left, and it was so quick that it's like, oh, I don't even have time to, like, process what's happening, or I don't know. This was 30 minutes to 1 hour of brutal torture and murder, and you sat there and watched the whole thing and did nothing about it and didn't say anything afterwards. Like, I mean, even if you were like, oh, I'm terrified for my own life, like, when you get back to your dorm that night, okay, peace out, I'm gonna go talk to the police now. Like, this makes no sense to me.
And Christa before had told another friend that she was going to at least beat up or kill Colleen, so she knew something was going to go happen. Like,
you knew there was malicious intent, whether or not you thought she was actually going to murder her. Like, you knew y'all weren't going there to have a fun weed party like you said you were, and you still sat there and witnessed the whole thing.
Yeah. So Christa does say, I know I deserve to be in here for the rest of my life. I don't deserve to be out walking around. I did something that's horrible and unacceptable, but I don't deserve to die for the actions of 3 individuals. But earlier she said she spilled her guts so the other 2 could get off. So you're just like, first taking full blame, and now, oh, they found out about the other 2 people. Well, look, it wasn't just me. What?
Yeah, she's like, I shouldn't die because all 3 of us did it, but the day you confessed, you're like, oh, I'll just say I did everything because I don't want them to get in trouble. Which is it, Christa? You can't have it both ways.
Yeah, you can't just,
well, you have it one way. You get to put to death, and that's it.
Goodbye! So, in 2001, another inmate, Patricia Jones, threatened Christa's friend Natasha. Natasha was serving 3 life sentences for kidnapping and murder. So, Christa choked her with a shoestring, and she was unconscious when prison guards pulled her off of her. So Christa was recorded during a phone conversation with her mom. Again, remember, all calls in jail are recorded.
Yes.
You're not the exception. But she told her mom, quote, and I wrapped that shoestring around of her and tried to choke the damn life out of her. She was passed out on the ground, Mama, twitching, foaming at the mouth. Her eyeballs were bugged out so far her eyelids were flipped up. See, now I know the difference between premeditated murder and what happened with Colleen. 'Cause see, I premeditated the hell out of this. Sure did. If I'd have had 30 more seconds, we have a little chalk line like out there in our rec pen, and that bitch would be gone somewhere.
Y'all, this woman is pure evil.
She's just evil. Like she is Satan.
Yeah.
Like, she's horrible.
I'm just like... And you just openly admitted to this to your mom on the prison phone call where you were obviously being recorded, that your 111 IQ tells you know that you're being recorded.
Yeah. So, in 2004, Pike was convicted of the attempted murder of Patricia Jones and received an additional 25-year prison sentence to be added to her current death sentence. So, 2 weeks after this attempted murder, she asked to end her appeals and move her execution forward. So they were like, okay. Execution was then set for August 19th, 2002. And then, because Christa loves to do it, she changes her mind and she's like, wait, no, appeal it. So
she's like, just kidding. I wasn't serious about it. Take backsies. No, Christa.
It's not how this works. You can't just take backsies. So this isn't Call of Duty. You don't just pop back up alive.
It's not how this works.
So her lawyers did file the appeals, and she was granted a stay of execution. She spent the next several years filing appeals, and her death sentence was upheld in October 2005. And then in 2007, her defense team she got a new defense team, and they sought a new trial, alleging ineffective assistance of counsel and that her defense didn't bring up evidence supporting Christa's alleged bipolar disorder. And I don't think I brought it up earlier, but Christa was found legally sane.
Yes.
She was, legally capable to go to trial. And they did bring up the bipolar disorder. I don't know what else you want from them. I mean, you gave a full confession. What else are they supposed to do?
Yeah, you can have a mental illness and still not, be let off because of mental insanity, because your mental illness does not inherently mean that you don't know the difference between right and wrong and that you don't understand the consequences of your action. Clearly, she understands all of that. So your mental illness doesn't really play a role in this aspect.
Yeah, because there are many people who have bipolar disorder and they don't murder people.
Yes.
It doesn't happen. So Christa was very highly medicated in this hearing for her alleged bipolar disorder, and so they rescheduled it for April 2008. So during this hearing, prosecutors portrayed her as a cold-blooded murderer who planned Colleen Slemmer's murder and prolonged it for sport, especially with her cat and mouse game where she'd let Colleen run away and then she came back and got her. And there was plenty of times you could have stopped it and you were just playing with her. Mm-hmm. And they all agreed, and they're like, yeah, you're not getting a new trial. That denied. So Christa also became newsworthy again in 2012 when she formulated a plan to escape with the help of Donald Kohut from New Jersey, who regularly visited Christa in prison, The extent of their relationship remains unknown. I don't know if they were like romantically involved or just BFFs. I don't know. But
who knows?
he was going to help as well as a former prison guard, Justin Heflin. So both men were charged with bribery and conspiracy to commit escape, and Heflin was also charged with facilitation to commit escape due to his job as a prison guard. So Heflin was also bringing drugs in and taking gifts and money from Kohut for his help. So Christa also got charged with this. And then, again, she's just going to keep going to these post-conviction relief hearings. In 2015, testimony revealed Christa was allegedly pregnant at the time of the murder. And so that's her new, I guess, defense is, I was pregnant. Again,
okay.
Do you know how many children there are and how many pregnant women there's been? And they don't murder people.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure in all of my psychology background, I've never come across that fact that being pregnant is a contributing factor in murdering someone. I've never heard of that, Christa.
She's like, look, I had all the side effects. I had morning sickness. My nipples were sensitive. I murdered. Like, it's all in the book.
Clearly, I was pregnant. It's all right there.
What to expect when you're expecting to Jew read? Because mine said it's possible.
Oh, God.
Goodness gracious. But, again, it doesn't lead to being mentally ill or that she was legally insane. None of it. So, Colleen Slemmer's mother also at this hearing requested the missing piece of her skull so that she could bury her daughter whole, but it was denied as it's a crucial piece of evidence against Christa and in her appeals. So she wasn't able to receive that.
Which is so sad. You've already been through this horrific ordeal and all you want to do is bury your child in the way that you feel is necessary. I know there are so many religions and cultures that you have very specific death rituals that if you don't achieve those that that person's not going to have a good afterlife, and I don't know if that's part of her thing, but either way, she just wants to bury her whole daughter and she can't do that because Christa over here getting a new trial every 6 weeks, making up some new random shit that supposedly is supposed to have something to do with something.
Yeah, because I know there are some religions where they believe it's very important to you have to have every single bone, you have to have everything together, and especially it's not it's well, her body was left for a while, there's some pieces we'll just never find. It's where this piece is and it could be achieved, but this asshole over here keeps appealing for no reason.
Yes.
So she did exhaust the state appeal process. And so then her new lawyer filed a 123-page petition on her behalf saying her constitutional rights were violated in the original 1996 trial and the penalty phase, and that Tennessee's appellate courts ignored these violations. So a lot of it is from it violating the Eighth Amendment, right, which prohibits cruel and unusual punishment. I am going to get a little bit into that amendment here in a minute, but they're saying due to her age, immaturity, and mental illness that she should not have been eligible for the death penalty, and that Shipp was too young for it, but Christa wasn't, which I can kind of understand. It was a year difference, but
yes,
also you did it. But so they allege Christa's lawyers were incompetent and failed to introduce evidence of mental illness. You've tried that a bunch of times, didn't work, but also her brain injury and post-traumatic stress disorder. In response, the state attorney general submitted a 90-page rebuttal repeatedly asserting that the state's ruling were legally correct, and in 2016 it was officially denied and rejected.
And this case is difficult for me personally. I've voiced my opinion on the death penalty as a whole concept before on this podcast several times, but this one is one of those that I'm just it was premeditated. It was you tortured this girl. You bragged about it immediately after. You're still talking about it. You talked to your mom about how you tried to murder this other girl in prison and had you have no concerns for your actions. There is not one single ounce of remorse in anything that you have ever done. And I understand that you were 18 at the time that you committed this murder, but here we are 20, 30, how old are we? Some years later, and you still have no remorse for what you did. And I'm just like, how? I don't know. Anyway, so that's just Jaclyn personally, who does not agree with the death penalty as a whole. This case is one where I'm like, I don't know. I get it.
And that's the thing, is clearly she's not being, like, rehabilitated at all, because then she went and tried to kill someone else.
Yes.
Like, so clearly she's not doing well. She's not. But yeah, I think, like you said, with the death penalty, you know, my whole thing with the death penalty is if you have one person who was wrongfully convicted who dies, then that's too much.
Yes.
Like, you don't need it. But then there's cases like this where it is so cut and dry that you're like,
yeah,
okay, I kind of get it. Like,
yeah.
So in 2019, Christa again tries to appeal, and again the court upheld the decision. And Christa has been very vocal that she belongs in prison, but she doesn't think she deserves the death penalty, and she should only have life without parole. And, like, at this point, I'm kind of like, maybe we should. A lot of people believe that she's never going to actually be executed, and that she will probably likely just die in prison. And
I mean, look at how much the appeals are costing the state. So, like, if they just changed her sentence to life without parole that she's advocating for, well, then what's she gonna... I mean, I'm sure she could find something to appeal after that, so I don't know, maybe not.
Yeah, because I was thinking also, if you maybe did change it, you could be like, okay, like, we could give her, like, Colleen's mother the piece of the skull, like, we could close it.
Yeah.
You know, something, but at this point today, Christa Pike is still alive in prison. And if you do look up Christa Pike, you'll see frequently it says that she is the youngest woman to be sentenced to death in the United States during the post-Furman period. I didn't know what that meant. So...
Me neither.
I'm going to tell you guys, because I deep dived.
Yes.
So in 1972, the Supreme Court heard Furman versus Georgia. So Furman versus Georgia was arguing whether the death penalty violates the Constitution's 8th Amendment on the prohibition of cruel and unusual punishment, if not imposed fairly. So this case was based off of William Furman, and he had received the death penalty for a burglary gone wrong. In August 1967, William Furman was burglarizing a house, and he insisted that once he saw the occupant of the house, he began to flee, and when he was fleeing, he tripped and he fell. And when he fell, the gun went off, shooting William Mickle. And then, in September 1968, William Furman was sentenced to the death penalty after a one-day trial. 1 day.
1 day.
Which... Yeah. I read that and I was like, what? Especially if he was going in just to burglarize. I mean, that's not first-degree murder. You know, you're not planning to kill.
Yeah.
So, Furman did appeal it to the U.S. Supreme Court. And in addition to this case, the Supreme Court justices also heard the case of Jackson versus Georgia, which was a capital punishment for rape, and Branch versus Texas, which was also capital punishment for murder. And all the men in these cases were African American as well. So the justices did agree that carrying out the death penalty in these cases would violate the 8th Amendment. They did all come to this agreement for different reasons. Some justices were like, the death penalty in general is just a violation, like, at all. Mm-hmm. And then a few others were like, okay, well, in this case, like, does it necessarily warrant capital punishment? Mm-hmm. So this decision did impose a brief suspension on the death penalty and forced state and federal lawmakers to refine their criminal statutes in order to ensure that capital punishment was not arbitrary or discriminatory. So basically, the lawmakers just had to make sure that they were giving the death penalty for things that warranted it, and it wasn't just random or based on race. So, leading up to this ruling, the number of cases receiving the death penalty was dropping. So, in the year 1930, there was 167 executions that year. But then, as it was dropping, because public support was also dropping, there was no executions between 1968 and 1972. And some states even did start to abolish the death penalty at this point. So, Basically, all this is to say is that the Furman case really made it where the death penalty could only be sought in cases with at least one statutory aggravating factor and not just every crime or case that resulted in a death. So, this did pause it. The death penalty did resume in 1976, but a lot of people really believe that we're just kind of back to that pre-Furman thing where we just kind of give the death penalty for cases no matter what. So that is a big debate among people who research the death penalty and these cases. So that is the post-Furman era.
Thank you for that deep dive, Courtney, because you sent me like a brief text message about the information, but I didn't know all of the details. So I really found it interesting to get to learn that and, what that meant.
Yeah, because when I saw like post Furman, I was like, oh, like Mark Furman and the O.J. Simpson case? Like, what does this mean? Like, is this something about like evidence? I don't know. What is it? And just like reading all of that, I was like, what is happening? Like, I've never heard of any of this. So just wanted to let you guys know, tell you a little about it.
And typically we do like to be very victim centered. Unfortunately, in this case, there is nothing out there about Colleen Slemmer. Like, not a single, like, we're like 10 pages into Google searches and literally everything you find is just about the murder or about Christa. So we just want to put that out there that we understand this case is a little bit different than the ones that we typically do because so much was focused on Christa because what makes a person turn out that way. But we really do wish that we had more information about Colleen, but unfortunately we just could not find anything. Other than the fact that her mom did speak on the TV show, the Women on Death Row, about wanting the piece of the skull back and basically about the horrors that were done to her family by Christa, but we can't really find anything about who Colleen was as a person.
Yeah. But that is the tragic murder of Colleen Slemmer and the biggest piece of shit, Christa Pike and Tadaryl Shipp.
And also Shadolla Peterson, whose name I said Patterson 8 times during this recording that Courtney's going to have to edit. Shadolla Peterson, who got nothing for watching this poor woman be tortured and murdered for over 30 minutes. So.
Yeah, and that's the thing too, is it wasn't, like you said, like very quick, like something happens, there's a gun, like, immediately. I mean, this was like almost an hour of just torturing this girl.
Yeah.
That's a long time. You probably could have stepped up and been like, maybe not.
Yes.
But, I mean, coulda, shoulda, woulda, right? Anyway.
All right. Courtney, what is your perk of the week?
Okay, my perk of the week is gonna make me sound like the biggest white girl who ever lived, but here I am. And it's that fall is coming, and so now pumpkin flavors are back at Dunkin' and Starbucks, and I genuinely love the taste of pumpkin and pumpkin spice. Like, I always say that I liked the pumpkin spice latte before it was cool. Don't know if that's true or not, but I love it so much. I got a pumpkin cream cold brew from Starbucks, and it was everything I've been wanting because it's so good, and it was just so exciting. I love fall in general. I love Halloween. I love Thanksgiving. I love Christmas. I love it all. So I'm very excited for the upcoming seasons. So.
And not being 100 degrees outside. That's always exciting.
Yes, that too. Jaclyn, what is your perk of the week?
I guess my perk of the week also makes me sound like the biggest white girl ever, but I finally got my hair done, guys, and I'm feeling myself, first of all, but so my hair had grown out so much that it's like you couldn't, like, it was like, it wasn't even like an ombre anymore, it was just like half and half, like, it was ridiculous. Yeah. Because I had gone like a little bit darker like last fall, and then like through the winter, and then spring and summer the whole world was shut down. So I finally got my blonde back, which I'm super excited about. I really bonded with my new hairstylist Shannon, who downloaded the podcast. So hi Shannon, if you're listening. And yeah. So you can also check her out at ShannonKirby_hair if you guys want to see the amazing work that she does, because she does some super cool things. And yeah, that's my perk of the week.
Yeah, if you live in or around the Richmond area, go get your hair done by her. I don't know her, but hi, we can be friends now.
Just a reminder, we are still running our contest. We are almost there, so hopefully when you guys hear this, it will be time for us to do our drawing, but once we reach 100 followers on Instagram, we will do a drawing for a $10 gift card to a coffee shop of your choice where you can get a pumpkin spice latte and a Caffeinated Crime sticker and pin, and we will do the same thing when we reach 50 reviews on Apple Podcasts, so make sure you go to Apple Podcasts and review us. You go to your mom's Apple Podcast and review us. You go to your grandpa's Apple Podcast and review us. Yes.
Everybody.
Go to all the phones and review us. And to find us on Instagram, we are at Caffeinated Crimes Pod. And you can also email us at caffeinatedcrimespod@gmail.com. If you want to see the Q&A video that we just posted yesterday, you can head on over to patreon.com/caffeinatedcrimes. If you guys are able to make a donation to help us make this podcast the best that it can be. Yeah, I think that's all the things.
I think that's all the things. So you know what? Go have a cup of coffee.
And don't commit a crime.